Welcome back to Rewitched, a charmed 1998 rewatch journey. I'm your host, Jess Sabanko, and I can't wait to share my thoughts on one of my favorite shows with you. I'll be keeping these recaps spoiler-free and welcome fans, new and old, to join me on my journey here and on social media at Rewitched_pod on Instagram and TikTok. Currently, I'm on season 7. All right, so this week we're talking about season 7, episode 7, Someone to Witch Over Me. So in terms of our innocents and villains of the week, our villains are very clearly the celerity demon that we're introduced to, as well as the avatars who are still in play, though I'm a little unsure of what to consider them at this point. In terms of our innocents, we do have Kyle, aka Agent Brody, since we now know his first name. We have the sisters, we have the guardians, and there's also some tension between Leo and himself and Leo and the avatars going on in this episode. In terms of my overall thoughts, I really did enjoy this episode and a lot of the setup we get. We also do get the big reveal that the avatars are the avatars in this episode. I did say they were the avatars last episode because I recognize them, but this is the episode where it directly gets stated. We see multiple people use the term, and of course, there is that interaction with them and Leo later in the episode. In terms of the sisters' storylines, so we do see that obviously early on, Paige and Phoebe are interacting with Kyle when he makes this discovery of these innocents who are surviving a fire, typically escaping from the 3rd floor only to be killed right after, which then leads them to discovering the celerity demon who is stealing these guardians with the hopes of being able to defeat his mentor and then eventually overcome the avatars, as they've been warned that the avatars are coming. And he wants to make sure that he isn't killed or eliminated when this comes up. He doesn't want to just go into hiding. He wants to fight, which I think actually made him a very interesting character. And obviously, once he is able to capture Paige's guardian, he then wants to go after all 3 of the sisters' guardians, thinking that this is the only way that he'd be able to stop the avatars. And I like this idea, I like this concept. But getting back to the sisters and Brody, we do see in that opening scene that Phoebe is very sassy with him, very distrusting of him. He's kind of like, oh, like, you guys can call me Kyle. Like, you should trust me. Like, I've done so much for you already. Like, look at me keeping you out of exposure and trying to help you out with this new power. And Paige clearly has a crush. She's like, ooh, like, he has style, he's so cool, like, all this stuff. And Phoebe notices it and even tells Piper, which is so sisterly. Again, I'm loving all the sisterly moments in this season because she's like quick to be like to Piper, like, oh yeah, like, Paige is really interested in Brody, if you know what I mean. Like, it's really funny. And I do like the dynamic that they're building between the two of them, as well as this kind of tension with the other sisters. We saw a lot of this in previous seasons where Piper and Phoebe are a little more on one side, Paige a little more on the other. So I am interested to see how that tension might develop as the season continues. But we definitely do see it come into play with this episode in terms of their plans for how to handle the situation. Ultimately, we see that Paige does want to work with Brody. Phoebe's on shore. Paige does go to his apartment later. That's where they discover the thing about the Guardians. And they have this conversation between the two of them that's actually really interesting, where he's bringing up, you know, the fact that, of course, he believes in them. Like, he believes in this all this time, and he's kind of surprised that Paige doesn't. And ultimately, when Paige's guardian gets taken instead of his because they decide to do a spell after she puts him into a burning building, he escapes and lives. And he immediately like runs away from the firemen, is like, I'm Homeland Security, like, don't worry about it, goes over to Paige to do the spell so that when time gets sped up, she's still present. And that is when her guardian, who I thought was interesting, it was a woman, because the other ones we saw were men in these white robes who were bald, and we see this bald woman as Paige's. So I really liked that little tidbit there. And we do see that that's who's taken, and then Paige becomes super clumsy because apparently, like, without her guardian, like, you even need little things from them, which is something that comes up with her second conversation with Kyle that I do actually want to read directly from when they go to look at the Book of Shadows. Because even Phoebe's like, you're going to let him near the book? And Paige is like, well, if he's evil, like, it'll zap him, like, whatever. Kyle also calls this out because at first he's standing back while she's looking at the book and she's like, well, don't you want to look with me? And he flips a page and is like, that's what you wanted, right? Like, it has some way of protecting from evil. Like, I don't get why you guys don't trust me. And then he says, what do I have to do to prove that I'm not a threat to you? And she's like, look, I'm sorry. I can hardly seem to trust myself right now, let alone anybody else. He says, well, I mean, guardians do more than keep you upright. They're your inner voice, your conscience, instincts. And without them, you're lost. And she's like, you really do believe in them, don't you? And he says, yeah, I'm a believer, all right. Hunting the new power for years has made me realize there's some awful things in this world. I like to think there's some good things too to balance it out, like you. And it is this cute moment of connection between the two of them, as well as this idea of what it is that Brody believes in. That, like, yes, he sees the evil in the world, but he also sees the good. And there's a lot of conversations about good versus evil in this episode that come up, especially when Leo interacts with the avatars. In terms of Phoebe in this episode, so we do find out that she's returned to work, and we have a couple of conversations with that, specifically one where she's talking to Elise about how, like, something came up, but yes, she'll still get the column in, and is obviously dealing with all this chaos at the house, so maybe not as ready to return from her sabbatical as expected. In terms of Piper in this episode, we see that she's very much still struggling with Leo. She wants to find a way to help him. And when her and Phoebe are at magic school, she brings up the idea of contacting Enola, who is the student who last season brought Phoebe on her vision quest. Phoebe then reveals that she was actually taught the potion for the vision quest and can help out with this because Piper's kind of like, I'm afraid, like, if we don't do this, if we don't let Leo see the future, even if it is dangerous, I'm going to lose my children's father forever. Like, we're just not going to be able to get him back. And so Phoebe does agree and they decide to do this. Leo at first is very against it. He's like, I'm not doing that, whatever. And Piper kind of calls him out as like, what do you have left to lose? Yourself, your family, your life? You've already lost all of that. Like, you have to try this. What else is left to lose? And so he does eventually agree. When he goes into his vision quest, we see that he's immediately connected with Chris. And we see that a lot of his guilt and this loss of self is not just from the avatars that are haunting him, but also from the fact that he's really just consumed by this guilt that, yes, he was able to save Wyatt, but he wasn't able to save adult Chris when it came to their interactions with Gideon last season and the way he blames himself for that loss. Though Chris is quick to be like, and obviously it's his own conscience, not real Chris, telling him that, like, look, yes, I was lost, but look at these opportunities we've created for the future, for good. Like, you went to stop evil in the war when you were human. Then you continued that path as a white lighter. And that led you to falling in love with Mom and then having me and Wyatt. And that is what your life was meant to be. It's about love. It's about good. And there's more good coming in the future because of everything you've done, because you were able to stop Gideon and save your son. And I'm still here. This small version of me is still here. And you have to be a father to these two kids in order to keep that good path going, is at least the message I take from it. And then, of course, he comes out of the vision quest, but Piper and Phoebe are both shocked when he's immediately thrown back into it. And Piper's very quick to be like, it must have been the new power. Like, they did this to him. And Phoebe's like, but we didn't see it. And Piper's like, we didn't see it in the beginning either, right? Like, very much calling that out. Earlier in the episode, when the heads are haunting him on top of the bridge and he's freaking out, telling them to leave him alone, we see the two avatars from last episode appear, and one of them's kind of like, hey, like, are we pushing him too far? And the leader is kind of like, no, like, he has to choose to join us on our own. And then he gets this sense that the sisters are doing the vision quest and he can interfere with it. So he shows up in this vision and reveals this future where they're in this cemetery. It's all very white, very bright. And there is a tombstone with all the Hallowell's names on it, including the three living sisters and Wyatt and Chris. And the avatar says that, you know, in good and evil, there's no end to the fight. It leads to early death. and this ongoing battle that will eventually destroy the world. And they go into this black void that he says is the result of this big battle, and that this is what it all leads to, that there is no future with the fight for good and evil. Because Leo's very quick to say, like, there is purpose in this, good wins, and that, you know, death has meaning as well. And the Avatar's like, yes, natural death, but not death from these ongoing battles. We want to create a different type of future that gets rid of good and evil, that allows the world to continue, a utopia of sorts. And Leo doesn't seem totally convinced. When they come out of the Vision Quest, which is just after Phoebe and Piper have been attacked by the Celerity Demon and are both dead, he goes and he's like, why would you do this? Because he runs down and finds Piper dead, which of course is who he checks on first, the love of his life. And he's like, we didn't do this. Evil did this. The battle did this. And then tells him that if he agrees to join them, it might not be too late to save the sisters. And so Leo does agree, and the other Avatar welcomes him, and he is able to heal them with this red healing power that stretches really far across the room. And Paige and Brody actually orb in during this, and Paige is kind of like later in the episode, like, Leo, I've never seen you heal someone like that before. And both sisters do seem to pick up on the fact that they might have been dead, because Piper's kind of like, oh, I thought I was. And Phoebe's like, dead? Yeah, me too. And then later when they're at P3, both Paige and Phoebe make jokes about being dead. And Piper's like, no, we were just maimed. Like, Leo can't heal the dead. So that, I think, is going to be an ongoing plot line potentially with Leo's new powers. We also saw, in terms of how they got to that point, that while Leo is in the Vision Quest, they do set up this crystal cage, which initially protects them from the Celerity Demon when he appears. But when Paige comes in, the potion she's about to use on him doesn't work. She then goes in with the sisters who are protected. But then when Kyle shows up, the Celerity Demon steals him, brings him down to the underworld in this cave. Paige is very quick to be like, we have to save him. Whereas Phoebe's like, it's a trap. The demon literally said it's a trap. Why would we do that? She's like, we can't let Kyle die. And she's like, well, no, like, he's going to keep him alive. And she's like, yeah, but for how long? And they're like, Paige, like, your instincts aren't working right now because you don't have your guardian. Like, this isn't safe. We can't do this. But Paige, of course, is like, I'm just going to do it anyway, and orbs out. And the sisters are like, oh, fuck, like, what do we do? And then there's a disagreement between Piper and Phoebe about whether to stay with Leo or to go and save Paige, which they ultimately do decide that they do need to go to save Paige. And Phoebe does say beforehand that they need to get his necklace. That's where the Guardians are being stored. So as they're walking to the kitchen, the demon appears. He's very quick to grab Phoebe, stab her in the stomach with the claw thing that he has. And she, while this happens, does pull off the necklace, reveals it's there when he's about to kill Piper. And Piper does blow him up, but not before his hand flies across the room and stabs her in the stomach as well. They both fall to the floor. And of course, later on, Leo does find them dead. In terms of Kyle, so he was at the cave. He does get the demon to reveal to him that the new power is the avatars by kind of like playing into it, because the demon's like, you're not a witch, like, what the fuck are you? And he's like, oh, I'm a federal agent. He's like, well, you're gonna die. And then just reveals all his plans, as demons tend to do. And then Kyle does ultimately tell Paige that the demon referred to the new power as the avatars. So in the final scene of the episode, when they are sitting together at P3 as the band is playing, and Leo comes over with his drink, he's like, wow, like, it's so nice to be back. Like, I'm happy that I figured it all out and that you guys saved me with that Vision Quest, basically. That's when Paige brings up, like, oh, Leo, like, have you ever heard anything about the avatars? And he's like, avatars? Like, why? And she's like, well, Kyle said that's what the new power is called. He's like, oh, I'll look into it. And then has them cheers to a new beginning. Leo, you shady bitch. Keeping secrets? It's very much giving Cole when he became the source. And I'm very interested to see where this storyline's gonna go. I think this episode has set up some really interesting things that I believe will continue throughout the upcoming episodes, including Leo now secretly being part of this new power, the avatars. We obviously have whatever's going on with Paige and Kyle and their connection. We have Piper believing that her marriage is on the mend. We have Phoebe back at work, but also still very much thrown into the charmed nature of it all. So I am definitely curious to see what this season has in store for us, particularly with this Avatar storyline and the idea that they do want to eliminate good and evil from the world and that they do need the Charmed One's help eventually, which was also revealed. It's not just Leo they're after, but also the sisters and potentially using him to get to the sisters once they're ready to learn about this future. So I think we have a lot of really cool stuff coming up. And yeah, that is all I have for this one, but I hope you'll join me back next time.